State of the nation. What do you think is the state of the nation? Are we headed in the right direction as far as democracy and governance is concerned? There's quite a number of things that have been happening in the country on that particular front as far as the leadership of this country is concerned. With President William Ruto being on the forefront when it comes to leading the nation on issues to do with governance, calling out those who are not supporting the government. We'll be getting deeper into that conversation later on to try and take a look, or rather take stock of what the year has been, what we've been able to achieve from matters economy, from matters governance, all the way to the social issues, considering the fact that yesterday it was End Femicide March in the country with women taking to the streets. And on that particular front, they were tear-gassed, marching for their rights. We'll be having that conversation later on with my guests in studio. I'll be speaking to Nurdin Kagai, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, Arnold Mariba, who is the head of policy and public affairs at the UDA party, and Stephen Mwekesi, who is a governance expert. We welcome your feedback as we continue with this conversation, you telling us exactly what you think about what's the real state of the nation and whether we are making progress as a country when it comes to matters governance and leadership in this country. My name is Brian Amuai, and you can engage us on our socials at Amuai Brian, that is on X, at K24 TV. The hashtag we are using this particular morning is New Dawn. We are also live across all social media platforms, and we'll be welcoming your feedback as we continue with the program this particular morning. Now, I do want to take you through what you're waking up to from Matters News, and we start with this particular story. Chief Justice Martha Koome says she will not resign. Now, the Chief Justice claims that the current onslaught against her and the arm of government she leads are not based on merit. The Judicial Service Commission, I beg your pardon, backs her stance, stating that no evidence has been presented to warrant action, emphasizing that it cannot act on rumors or unverified claims. David Kagina now reports.
Chief Justice Martha Koome has dismissed calls for her resignation, affirming her commitment to continue serving Kenyans in her capacity as the head of judiciary. Speaking during a judicial stakeholders forum on human rights, Koome reiterated her dedication to upholding the rule of law, ensuring justice for all, and strengthening Kenya's legal framework. This comes amid mounting public speculation and rumors about alleged misconduct in the judiciary.
But I know the intentions. It's a business model. I don't know to achieve what, maybe to scare me, to distract me, to defame me, and hold me out of office, but they can try something else.
The Judicial Service Commission has also weighed in on the matter, explaining that no evidence has been presented to warrant an investigation or action against those accused of being corrupt in the judiciary.
Social media may amplify grievances, but it's the act of filing complaints or petitions with the JSC that ensures that matters are addressed fairly, efficiently, and transparently.
Meanwhile, the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, Freedom Okaya, has raised alarm over the rise in cases of gender-based violence across the country.
The Office of the Chief Registrar, as the custodian of the SGBV register, notes that statistics on the prevalence of gender-based violence paints a grim picture.
To address the surge in GBV cases, the Chief Justice revealed that judiciary had already launched 13 gender justice courts to deal with those found culpable of committing gender-related crimes.
The depth of this crisis merits that sexual and gender-based violence should be declared as a national disaster.
The Chief Registrar is now calling on the government to declare GBV a national disaster, necessitating urgent action beyond reliance on legal processes. Despite there being strong laws and policies guiding on the matter, implementation remains to be weak, explaining why justice remains to be elusive for family and victims. As to the question of whether this will be declared a national disaster, it's a wait and see. For K24 from Safari Park, I'm David Kagina.
All right, now President William Ruto has continued to defend the government's plan to roll out livestock vaccination from next month, despite criticism. Now speaking at the Pastoralist Communities Leadership Conference in Wajir County, The president said the program is important in controlling the spread of diseases and opening up international markets for livestock products in Kenya. The president once again called out leaders opposed to the program barely a week after he attacked Kenyans who have continued to oppose government's policies. Our reporter Edwin Bugwa has more details on this particular story.
President William Ruto has visited Wajir County for the first time since being elected. This visit comes at a time when the president continues to face criticism over his remarks against Kenyans opposing government policies. The president has now advanced his harsh attacks to leaders opposing the government livestock vaccination program.
There is an evil spirit in Kenya that is resident in some leaders. They churn out falsehood. They oppose everything for the sake of opposing. I mean, foot and mouth disease, PPR, are diseases we have been fighting ever since I was born. It is nothing new.
Speaking at the 4th Pastoralist Leadership Conference in Wajir County, the president defended the government-planned nationwide livestock vaccination campaign, insisting the program is critical in managing diseases prevalence and opening up international markets for Kenya's livestock products.
We are going to carry out this vaccination because it is the right thing to do, because we need to take charge of disease control and open up markets for our animal products.
These strong remarks by the president come a few days after his program was criticized by Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, who claimed the program is a government ploy to harm Kenyans.
The vaccination exercise is only the harbinger of more sinister things to follow. The scheme is to eradicate farm animal production entirely.
The president also stated this initiative also aligns with Kenya's efforts to position as a major vaccine producer in Africa, as the vaccines will be sourced from the Kenya's Veterinary Vaccines Production Institute.
And we are going to use vaccines that are produced by Kenya right here at home, so that even as we develop vaccines that we are selling to other countries, we are doing the same to our country.
The president also took the opportunity to make commitments to the residents of Wajir.
Hii town yenu ya Wajir, contractor nitakuja naye Januari ya kupanga mambo ya sewage system. Mimi nitatoa nafasi katika Teachers Training College. Vijana wa hapa waamue kuwa walimu, wapatiwe sponsorship na hawa viongozi. Na mimi, I will give them positions, affirmative action position katika Teachers Training College, ndio watoto wa hapa wapate walimu kutoka Wajir County.
Edwin Bugwa, K24.
All right, thank you so much, Edwin Bugwa, for that particular report. Now, let's take a look at this particular story which was making headlines yesterday, and this has to do with the human rights organizations having strongly condemned law enforcement for employing excessive force against demonstrators during the ongoing 16 days of activism against gender-based violence campaign. They have expressed outrage at the contradiction of police action, pointing out the irony of using violence at a time when the government is focused on combating gender-based violence. The government has now been called upon to release those who were detained and to ensure all individuals injured during the protest receive prompt and adequate medical care. Gertrude Brugay reports.
Scenes that unfolded Tuesday morning at the Nairobi CBD. Clashes between police officers and hundreds of activists. The protesters were out on the streets to mark the ongoing 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Chaos erupted as police dispersed demonstrators with tear gas. The irony was stark as law enforcement used excessive force to suppress a peaceful campaign calling for an end to violence against women and girls. The protest, which began at 9 a.m., took place around Jivanji Gardens and proceeded along Moi Avenue and Kenyatta Avenue, ultimately converging at the city centre. In a joint statement, the Law Society of Kenya and several civil society organizations condemned the police, calling on the government to immediately release those arrested and ensure justice for all those injured during the protests.
It's been so bad. Like, they started tear gassing us even before we started the protest, and some men are beating women. I mean, we are here to fight against violence against women, and someone is fighting us.
Unarmed women with makeup and handbags, it is not worth it. We are doing a peaceful protest. Women cannot do anything by themselves. We don't have men to fight for us, like the way it happened in the other Maandamano. But the police just did us dirty.
We can all coexist on this earth peacefully. So we don't need to, stab each other with knives, drown each other in water, throw tear gas at us, throw rubber bullets at us. I mean, if you look at it, who's the one attacking us at this point?
They're demanding that the government take responsibility for the violent response to the peaceful demos, while at the same time calling for further investigation into the police officers involved. At least 9 people were arrested in connection to the protest. Recently, the government set aside 100 million shillings to be used in the fight against gender-based violence, a move which human rights organizations now say is contrary to what happened today. Gertrude Burgay, K24, Nairobi.
All right, Gertrude, thank you so much for that particular report. Away from that into matters politics now, President William Ruto now says his actions to seek a pact with the former president were meant to unite Kenyans in the spirit of inclusivity. Retired President Uhuru Kenyatta's allies claim that he has no plans to join the broad-based government and will not front anyone for any position within the Kenya Kwanza government. Martin Opio reports on the changing political landscape in Mount Kenya and the country at large.
As the country grapples with the latest handshake in the political scenes between two political enemies, President William Ruto and his predecessor, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, Ruto was in Wajir for the first time since his election. Ruto chose to defend his action of seeking a truce with Uhuru Kenyatta on grounds of inclusivity.
Forward, it is indeed our place as a country to work together, to find common ground on things that are of national interest to the Republic of Kenya. It is the reason why I am working with the former Prime Minister. It is the reason why I have reached out to the former president. It is the reason why I will reach out to all other leaders so that we can fashion a country that all of us believe in, a country that we can all have a stake in and participate in its full, in realizing our full potential as a country.
Questions are emerging as to reasons that prompted the head of state to meet with Uhuru Kenyatta amidst the turbulence within the Ruto administration, who is facing rebellion from Kenyans over the state of economy and resistive Mount Kenya following the ouster of Rigathi Gachagua.
We must continuously build bridges instead of erecting barriers. We must always find it to create more synergy as we move forward.
Other than the only issues that we know that were discussed are the issues that are contained in the statement that was released by President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, former President of the Republic of Kenya, for the reason that this visit was made to his home. So it is only him who can release what was discussed within his compound. A stranger cannot claim anything outside what is contained in this document. That's very, very important, because that is also the way to maintain respect.
Analyst Moses Mwangi says that the decision of President Uhuru Kenyatta to agree to meet Ruto absolves him from any blame should the country go south. Jubilee Secretary General says that Ruto is seeking Uhuru to save him from the shame of a collapsing country.
A very good gesture. It's a climb down by Dr. Ruto to realize that he needs to talk to the former president, who may be in a better position to understand and to advise him on how he needs to steady the Kenyan boat. Because politically, things have not been well, and especially concerning the politics of Mount Kenya, which is the major voting bloc that put him in power.
Despite the blame games that Ruto and his former deputy president descended to the Jubilee administration, Ruto now turns to Uhuru Kenyatta to save himself.
Would try as much as they can to try and give a perception that President Uhuru was okaying or was receiving Ruto and embracing him politically, because that is in their best interest. But the truth of the matter is that what he did was to receive him in his house and then told him the issues that he has also gathered from Kenyans that are of concern, that he, as the head of government.
The restless Mount Kenya region is a focus of the conversation, but Uhuru allies are maintaining that the Rigathi Gachagua antics do not scare them, as he has no influence.
By the outcome of yesterday, if Gachagua will not even try to dare to go to look for Uhuru, for what? You have the people. What do you want to go from Uhuru? His money? No. Uhuru fought his battle. Fight your own battle. Yes. And it is not important to feel that a politician, you must seek the strength of the Godfathers. You don't require to. Yes, just get connected to people. Yes, those are the bosses.
On the flip side, when the Gen Zs descended on Ruto's government, Raila Odinga came to the rescue, placing President Ruto at the mercy of Odinga and his ODM. Despite the entry of the 4 opposition politicians into government, ODM is said to be demanding more in the upcoming appointments. By bringing in Uhuru Kenyatta, President Ruto hopes to neutralize Odinga should the truce head the inclusive way.
Not any fear that Uhuru will not sit there to tell William how to win back the mountain. He will sit here to tell him the issues that the people in the mountain and everywhere else in the country are complaining about. The work of anybody in government is to deal with the issues that are of concern to Kenyans.
The handshake places Rigathi Gachagua in a corner as the battle for the kingpin for the mountain re-emerges. For Uhuru allies, pushing themselves as the new opposition who are making a killing from criticizing the government will have to re-strategize. Already, Moses Kuria has alluded to the possibility of Uhuru Kenyatta returning to politics. In doing so, Kuria announced that he was considering returning to the Jubilee Party following the meeting between Ruto and Uhuru, which he termed as a successful endeavor. Kuria wants President William Ruto, retired President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga to come together and give Kenyans a new constitution in form of a BBI2. Martin Opio, K24 TV, Nairobi.
Right, that's the political front here in the country. Still on that. Now, President William Ruto's meeting with former President Uhuru Kenyatta has been hailed as a historic step towards fostering national unity. Now, Kikuyu elders expressed their support for the move, saying such reconciliation was long overdue and should have begun immediately after Ruto was sworn into office. The meeting between President William Ruto and former President Uhuru Kenyatta has been praised as a significant milestone in efforts to heal a politically divided nation. Kikuyu elders say the government made a mistake of sidelining Uhuru after Ruto assumed office, arguing that it would have been better to seek his advice and involve him from the start.
Kitu ya maana sana. Unaweza kuwa umelemewa na pahali. Na hii kitu ingefanyika kutoka mwanzo. Sababu ilituchagaza Uhuru wakati alikuwa anapeana uongozi, alipeana kwa amani. Lakini kuna kitu ya maajabu ilitokea sana. Hiyo siku tu alianza kupigwa siku hiyo hiyo badala ya kuulizwa mawaidha. Tuseme hata jana ni vizuri sana walianza kwanza kuona makosa.
The elders also criticized President Ruto's administration, accusing it of fostering political divisions among Kenyans. They are now urging the government to demonstrate inclusive leadership by uniting all citizens, regardless of political affiliations.
This council is deeply concerned at the continued profiling of the Agikuyu and threats of ethnic violence, which is being carried by persons who appear, by their audacity, as if they are enjoying protection from the state. Because if they weren't, they would have been prosecuted. The Lamu incident is a case in point.
My appeal, and I believe it is the appeal of this community and our leaders, is he could change his thinking, direction of which he is taking this country so that we can have a harmonious society. To listen to the people that elected him and seek advice that we saw him do yesterday from those who maybe give him the right advice.
The meeting between President Ruto and former President Uhuru Kenyatta comes after 2 years of perceived tension between the two leaders, especially following the 2022 elections. The meeting has sparked mixed reactions among Kenyans, with some calling it a promising start to reconciliation, while others remain skeptical about its long-term impact.
Kama kutakuwa na siasa ni kuongelea mambo ya Rigathi Gachagua in a way that I don't know vile atakuwa akiandoliwa Mount Kenya ama anajaribu ku create faction nyingine, but generally uhusiano yao sione kama kuna interest ya Wakenya ndani yake. Hiyo ni siasa na urafiki ya watu wawili.
Mimi naona Uhuru ana influence sasa. Kwa sasa Uhuru hapatali angekaa nyumbani. So inakaa sasa amewasaliti wenzake wa milima.
Clearly Uhuru Kenyatta gave us the right direction in which we are going to support the government in place.
Kwenda pale Ichaweri, kwenda kutafuta ushauri ni jambo mzuri, inaonyesha kunyenyekea, na pia tunaona kuna mwamko mpya.
Uhuru Kenyatta is our kingpin hapa Mount Kenya, na wakati rais anaenda wanaongea, so tunajua ya kwamba matatizo yetu mingi yenye tumekuwa nayo hapo mbeleni wakati wa hii serikali itakuwa imetatuliwa.
The decision by the two leaders to meet has been described as a beacon of hope for a politically divided nation, particularly for the Mount Kenya region. President William Ruto has reiterated his commitment to uniting the country, urging leaders to pursue politics that bring people together rather than divide them. Brian Amuai, K24. All right, now the Center for Multi-Party Democracy has criticized President William Ruto's government, accusing it of orchestrating a coup d'etat by failing to appoint the leadership of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. They asserted that the country remains in state of limbo until a functional electoral body is established. Additionally, the leaders condemned the practice of politicians making public church offerings, claiming that the money comes from taxpayers and should instead benefit Kenyans directly.
Immediately after.
From Kericho County. I'm the national youth leader. Vice chair of Kikau, which is a community-based. Give Reverend as a minute. Institutions, thank you. The streets.
This year's International Human Rights theme, Our Rights, Our Future, Right Now, shows that neither disillusionment nor the self-delusion of the state are going to despair us, are going to take over. Kenya is caught in the middle of a whirlwind political storm, kicked off by the death of the Ruto executive and the parliament. Why have they died? When the Ruto executive co-opted the Kenya parliament into its executive, they skewed the state and rendered Kenya stateless. So right now we are stateless.
Elections, the right to vote, the right to vie are one of the fundamental rights, one of the rights and fundamental freedoms enshrined in Article 38 of the Constitution. And therefore, it's not a light issue. And being a right, therefore, if we have to talk about inclusion, we are simply saying one very simple thing, that every vote must count, and must count with equal weight. Therefore, do we have a system that can ensure every vote counts? Let us have 290 presidential elections in every constituency. Let the results be published and pinned on the wall, and let us have the capacity to know who has been elected. We don't have to wait for 7 days. The Americans are going to do their bombers in January next year. Don't they know who won the election? Don't we know Trump won? Why are our elections opaque for the presidential election?
All right, on that particular note, we take our first break here on New Dawn. It is exactly 24 minutes past 6 a.m. this particular morning. Continue engaging us on our socials. At Amoy Brian, that is on X at K24 TV. We will be sampling your feedback as we continue with this particular show. And of course, our conversation this particular morning will be on the state of the nation, taking stock of how far we've come as far as the leadership and governance of this country is concerned, and also a special focus on the rhetorics from the head of state on issues to do with criticism that the Kenyans are actually doing when it comes to his leadership and governance style. We'll be getting a look at that later on when we come back from this particular break, after I take you through what you're waking up to in the newspapers.